Imagine this: you're riding high, doing what you love, and the world can't get enough of you. Then, suddenly, it all comes crashing down. That's the story of Ben Whittaker, a young boxing sensation who's been the talk of the internet. His flashy fighting style, paired with his over-the-top antics in the ring, has made him a viral star. Millions have tuned in to watch him, mesmerized by his talent and swagger. But in his latest fight, the unthinkable happened, a moment so brutal and humbling it's being called one of the most humiliating fraud checks in boxing history. Ben didn't just lose. He was beaten, embarrassed, and even thrown out of the ring. To truly understand how things went so wrong for this rising star, we need to go back to the beginning and uncover the journey that led to his fall. Ben's love for boxing was sparked by his father, who was once an amateur boxer himself. But his dad's dreams were cut short by an injury. A working-class man with 2 jobs, he did everything he could to support his family. He also made sure to pass his passion for the sport down to Ben, introducing him to Joby Clayton, a coach and family friend who also happened to be Ben's godfather. Money was tight, and affording a gym membership was out of the question. But Joby, who had trained none other than Anthony Joshua during his amateur days, saw potential in young Ben. He let him train at a discounted rate, giving the boy a chance to pursue his dreams. And Ben didn't disappoint. His progress was rapid, and soon it became clear that he had to choose: commit to boxing or walk away. The rest, as they say, is history, or in Ben's case, a history that took a dramatic turn. When Ben turned 15, his father sat him down for one of those life-changing talks. "Listen," he said, "you've got to choose, football or boxing." It wasn't an easy decision, but Ben's heart was already in the ring. From that moment, he gave everything he had to boxing. In 2019, his dedication started paying off in a big way. He qualified for the World Championships in Yekaterinburg, Russia, where he brought home a bronze medal, a big moment for the young fighter. By 2020, Ben was on an even bigger stage. At the European qualifying tournament, he earned a spot on Team Great Britain, setting the stage for him to represent the UK at the Tokyo Olympics. Of course, the pandemic pushed the games to 2021, but Ben was ready when the time came. In the quarterfinals, he breezed past Brazil's Kino Machado, showcasing his skill and determination. Then, in the semifinals, he outpointed Russian veteran Imam Khateev in a hard-fought match. Everything seemed to be lining up for Ben's golden moment. But in the final, he faced Cuban legend Arlen Lopez. It was an incredibly close fight, but the judges gave the decision to Lopez, leaving Ben with the silver medal. What came next stirred up plenty of controversy. Ben refused to wear his silver medal during the ceremony. He explained later that it wasn't about disrespect, he simply felt like he'd lost the gold and couldn't see the silver as anything but a failure. The backlash was swift, but Ben apologized, saying, "I did it for all my compatriots. I just felt like I let everyone down." It was a raw and human moment, showing how much he cared about his craft and the people rooting for him. Ben's Olympic journey didn't end the way he wanted, but in hindsight, he realized something important. "I should have put that beautiful silver medal around my neck and smiled," he later admitted. "Because it wasn't just for me, it was for the country." In the heat of disappointment, he vowed to come back stronger, promising to return to the Olympics and claim gold. But as the adrenaline wore off, and after deep conversations with his family and team, Ben made a different choice. It was time to go pro. On July 30, 2022, Ben Whittaker made his professional debut in Bournemouth, UK. This wasn't just any debut. It came after intense preparation under Sugar Hill Stewart at Detroit's legendary Kronk Gym, founded by the iconic Emanuel Stewart. Training there wasn't just about sharpening skills, it was about immersing himself in the rich history of a gym that had molded champions for decades. To understand what came next, you need to know a little about the world Ben was stepping into. Professional boxing has a unique structure that's been in place for hundreds of years. It's a layered ecosystem with 3 main tiers: boxing superstars, regular fighters, and at the bottom, journeymen. Each group plays a crucial role. Superstars don't just fight for themselves, they support the entire sport. Their fights help promoters, undercard fighters, and even the regular opponents they face. But getting to that level isn't easy. Before a boxer can even be considered regular, they need experience, and that's where the journeymen come in. These are the fighters who grind it out in the trenches, taking on challenges to help rising stars hone their skills. For Ben, entering this ecosystem wasn't just about proving himself but also navigating the unspoken rules of the professional game. In boxing, there's an unspoken understanding, a system that's been around forever. Journeymen are the backbone of the sport. They're the ones who step into the ring to help rising stars gain experience and confidence. It's not about winning for them, it's about the paycheck. No bribes, no shady deals, everyone knows the skill gap is real. These fighters take on near impossible odds because they need the money, and the system only works because every role supports the others. Even showmen like Roy Jones Jr. respected this balance. When Roy put on a show, it wasn't at the expense of journeymen, it was for the crowd and the sport. Against a serious opponent like James Toney, his antics highlighted his brilliance without humiliating anyone undeservedly. It's a fine line that requires skill and respect. But Ben Whittaker? Well, he either didn't get the memo or decided to ignore it. Take his professional debut, for example. Ben faced Greg O'Neill, a journeyman with a balanced record of 6 wins and 6 losses. Ben had a clear physical advantage, standing 11 centimeters taller with a 191 centimeter reach. From the start, he used his superior range to dominate, keeping O'Neill at bay with sharp jabs and precise footwork. But then, Ben turned up the showmanship. At one point, he ducked under an attack and, for no reason other than to entertain, lifted Greg off the ground like a bride at a wedding. The crowd loved it. But O'Neill? Not so much. Ben followed up with a flurry of flashy uppercuts and punishing body shots, eventually dropping O'Neill in the second round with a perfectly placed right cross. It was a textbook knockout, but the theatrics raised some eyebrows. Just weeks later, with an injured shoulder, Ben stepped into the ring again on the undercard of the Joshua rematch in Saudi Arabia. His opponent, Croatian fighter Petar Nosic, came in with a clean record of 6 wins but lacked experience against serious competition. Ben played it safe, staying at range and picking Nosic apart. The fight went the distance, and Ben secured a unanimous decision. After nearly a year off to recover, Ben returned in May 2023 to face Jordan Grant, a fellow Brit. Grant, who had previously lost to Tommy Fury, entered the ring against a rejuvenated Ben Whittaker. Draped in leopard print robes and shorts, a nod to the legendary Naseem Hamd, Ben dazzled the crowd with his footwork and precision. From the opening bell, he peppered Grant with jabs and vicious body shots, all while entertaining the audience with his signature flair. As the fight progressed, Ben's relentless assault left Grant barely hanging on. A crisp 2-punch combination sent Grant sprawling to the canvas, the referee starting the count. The fight wasn't stopped, though. It wasn't meant to be. Journeymen like Grant play their role, and Ben, once again, walked away with the win and the spotlight firmly on him. But for all the glitz and glamour, questions lingered. Was Ben's showmanship overshadowing the respect the sport demands? Only time would tell. Ben Whittaker's boxing journey was becoming a roller coaster of skill, flair, and a touch of controversy. Each fight added to the legend, or the drama, depending on how you saw it. Take his third professional outing on May 6, 2023. Early in the third round, Ben landed a perfectly timed check hook that sent his opponent, Jordan Grant, stumbling. Grant's corner had seen enough and threw in the towel. It was a decisive end to a fight that showcased Ben's potential as both a boxer and a performer. By July 1, 2023, the stakes were higher at Manchester Arena. Ben faced Vladimir Belinsky, a seasoned Slovak gatekeeper with 13 wins and 6 losses. This was a step up in competition. Scheduled for 8 rounds, the fight started aggressively, with Ben pressuring Belinsky with sharp, focused punches. By the third round, Ben was unleashing a storm of blows, knocking Vladimir down with a thunderous right hand. As the fight wore on, Vladimir slowed, giving Ben room to experiment. His corner pushed him to finish strong in the 7th, and Ben obliged, landing relentless combinations that turned Vladimir into a punching bag. By the 8th round, a precise right hand followed by a finishing combination prompted the referee to step in. December 10, 2023, brought even more flair to the ring. Ben entered his next fight with Stephen Lionheart Dreadhard in dramatic fashion, escorted by a ballerina in a black balaclava to samba piano notes. Once the fight began, Ben read his opponent like a book, landing sharp jabs and toying with him while delivering punishment. The second round was pure theatrics. With his hands down, Ben ducked under jab and delivered a surgical hook to the temple. Seconds later, a well-timed uppercut had the crowd roaring. By the third round, Ben's heavy combinations blooded Stephen's face, forcing him to take a knee. Yet, Ben couldn't resist showing off for the cameras, frustrating the referee. In the 4th and 5th rounds, Ben unleashed crushing shots, including a body blow that sent Stephen retreating and eventually collapsing along the ropes. The referee waved it off, sparing Stephen from further damage. Then came March 31, 2024, at London's iconic O2 Arena, where Ben faced Leon Willings. Ben started strong, pinning Leon in corners and landing heavy punches that shook him. Despite Leon's defensive efforts in the middle rounds, Ben's relentless pressure and powerful combinations left no doubt about who controlled the fight. By the end, while fans hoped for a dramatic finish, Ben settled for a dominant decision victory. On June 15th, the stakes were even higher. Ben stepped into the ring against Ezra Anyeka, an undefeated Nigerian puncher with a record padded by weak opponents. This fight marked Ben's first 10-round bout and his first shot at a professional title. Each fight wasn't just about winning, it was about the show, the spectacle, and the evolving story of a boxer balancing raw talent, undeniable charisma, and a knack for stirring the pot. Ezra Anyeka thought he could surprise Ben Whittaker with sudden bursts of aggression, but Ben was having none of it. From the opening bell, he kept Ezra in check with sharp counterpunches that seemed to say, "Nice try, but not today." By the second round, Ben was putting on a counterpunching clinic. Ezra, trying to close the gap, walked straight into several hard shots. As the rounds ticked by, the Nigerian slugger shifted from threatening to merely surviving. By the midway point, he looked like he was hanging on for dear life. Then came a bizarre moment after the bell. Ben, ever the showman, taunted Ezra by gesturing for him to meet in another corner of the ring. Ezra's response? A headbutt to the chin, a clear sign of frustration. The 8th and 9th rounds were all Whittaker. Ezra, visibly exhausted, became little more than a punching bag for Ben's precise combinations. In the closing moments, a liver shot followed by a flurry of punches left Ezra dazed and retreating. Ben didn't even have to step on the gas fully. He cruised to a comfortable victory, controlling the fight from start to finish. Yet, whispers began to surface. Fans and analysts couldn't help but wonder, was Ben's flashy style masking a struggle to finish fights? He had all the tools, speed, strength, and precision, but seemed to lack the killer instinct to seal the deal. The next fight, they said, would be the real test. Fast forward to October 12, 2024, on the undercard of the highly anticipated Dmitry Bivol vs. Arts Beterbiev showdown. Ben was set to defend his IBF International Light Heavyweight title against the experienced Liam Cameron. With a 23-6 record, Cameron was no pushover. He'd fought for minor titles before, and while he'd only won one, he represented a clear step up in competition for Ben. The fight began with Cameron coming out aggressively, jabbing his way forward. Ben, ever the technician, quickly took the center of the ring, measuring the distance with his lead hand. But Cameron was relentless, swatting Ben's hand away and pushing forward with more jabs. It didn't take long for Ben to find his rhythm. Using one of his signature setups, a quick, teasing jab to bait a counter, he pulled back and landed a hard shot of his own. Feeling confident, he began throwing body shots, a left hook here, a feint there, all while staying elusive. But cracks started to show. Cameron's wild overhands occasionally found their mark, exploiting Ben's tendency to pull straight back instead of blocking. In one exchange, Cameron landed a clean left hook that rattled Ben just enough to remind him he wasn't untouchable. As the fight progressed, Ben leaned into his showmanship, throwing flashy but ineffective combinations to the guard, more for the crowd than for damage. While it looked great, it drained his cardio. Cameron noticed and adjusted, using feints and overhands to unsettle Ben, who began slipping punches awkwardly or missing counters entirely. By the second round, Cameron was pressing the action, using his jab to chase Ben around the ring. Ben, uncharacteristically frustrated, threw punches at the air, unable to find his target. Cameron, meanwhile, was calm and calculated, unloading combinations when Ben found himself trapped against the ropes. The tension was palpable. Ben smiled nervously during clinches, even whispering to Cameron at one point, only to receive a sharp overhand in response. By the middle of the second round, it was clear, Liam Cameron wasn't just surviving, he was figuring Ben out. This was shaping up to be more than just a title defense. It was a test of Ben Whittaker's ability to adapt, evolve, and prove he was more than just a flashy technician. It all started with a glimmer of hope. Liam Cameron blocked one of Ben Whittaker's jabs and countered with a hook that landed clean and fast. By this point, Liam had dialed in his timing, and it showed. Every punch he threw now seemed to catch Ben at just the right moment. Ben, in response, stuck to his usual flashy routine, hitting Liam's guard with straight punches. But here's the problem. While Ben's punches weren't landing cleanly, Liam's counters were. Each jab from Cameron snapped Ben's head back, forcing him into awkward pivots that were doing more harm than good. Not only was Ben taking damage, but his unnecessary movements were draining his energy. Then came the uppercut. Ben tried to dodge Liam's jab and predictably ducked low, something Cameron had seen one too many times. This time, Liam was ready and nailed Ben with a sharp uppercut. It was becoming painfully obvious that Whittaker was a one-trick pony, and his tricks weren't fooling anyone anymore. Liam, growing more confident, started playing with his food. A light jab to the body had Ben flailing wildly, throwing punches at thin air. Another jab sent him backpedaling toward the ropes, where Cameron unloaded a barrage of punches. Ben's only response? A nervous smile and some whispered trash talk, which Liam shut down with an overhand punch. By the third round, it was clear, Liam wasn't just beating Ben, he was embarrassing him. Cameron doubled up his jab, forcing Ben to dodge in such exaggerated fashion it looked like he was auditioning for a slapstick comedy. Predictably, it left him wide open for an overhand that landed squarely on his head. Cameron kept the pressure on with two hooks, and Ben's tendency to rely on head movement instead of proper footwork once again left him vulnerable. It was amateur-level stuff, and Liam was making him pay for it. By now, Ben's over-the-top dodging and dancing were wearing him down. The fourth round brought humiliation to new heights. Liam started taunting Ben, sticking his tongue out mid-fight and landing combinations at will, straights, overhands, body hooks, you name it. By the end of the round, Ben looked like a glitching video game character, his attempts to fight back laughably ineffective. The fifth round was the final nail in the coffin. Ben had clearly lost all belief that he could win. In a desperate act of frustration, he threw a combination of low blows. Then came the low point of the fight, literally. After taking a jab, Ben pretended his mouth guard had fallen out, clearly stalling for time to catch his breath. When the action resumed, Cameron unleashed a brutal combination, mixing headshots and body blows that left Ben visibly shaken. Things got downright bizarre when a clinch sent both fighters tumbling out of the ring. Cameron hopped back in, ready to fight, but Ben stayed down, claiming a leg injury. Now, you'd think Liam would be awarded a TKO victory, right? Or at least, the fight might be ruled a no contest given the strange circumstances. But no. The promoters had other plans. Somehow, they decided to ignore the fifth round entirely, where Ben was clearly dominated, and score only the first 4 rounds. The result? A draw. It was a decision that defied logic, but it wasn't hard to see why. Ben Whittaker was being positioned as boxing's next big thing, and a loss would have derailed that narrative. But let's be real, this wasn't just a bad night for Ben, it was a wake-up call. He needs to hit the gym. Hard. Flashy moves and shoulder rolls can only get you so far. Boxing is about fundamentals, using your legs for defense, setting up attacks, and knowing when to stay disciplined. Right now, Ben isn't there yet. Do you think Ben Whittaker has what it takes to turn things around and become a top-level boxer? Or is this the beginning of the end for his career?